Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of our Google Wallet live stream. I'm so happy to have you here. And by the way, while we're here, let me tell us a bit about you. So I can see the comments here in the chat. So if you could just post, where are you watching from today? So we don't feel that much alone just talking to the screen. But today, I won't be that much like feeling alone because I have a special guest. Today, we're going to learn a bit more about how's the day in the life of a Google Wallet product manager. So I'm very glad, I'm very pleased to have our very special guest here, Kevin Miller. Kevin, hello, how are you?
Hello, Edson. Good, good. Very excited to be here. Hello, everyone out there. Yeah, very excited about the opportunity here to talk with you and answer some questions from the Google Wallet developer community.
Awesome. And today I'm live from Cary, North Carolina. And where are you streaming from today, Kevin?
Yes, I am at the Google offices here in Chelsea in New York City on the second floor. And despite some technical difficulties immediately before this started, I think we're good to go here.
Yeah, well, we're all tech people, and this never happens, right?
Yep.
No, not at all. And I can see that we have some some friends here from New York City as well. So I can see some places that people are watching us from, like New York City, Virginia, Texas, France, India, Missouri. What else? India again. So we have a lot of different cities, countries, continents watching us live today. Very glad to have you all here with us today. So, by the way, let me start this conversation with Kevin. I want to know more about what a product manager does. So, why do we need a product manager specifically for Google Wallet? What do you do?
Yeah, that's a big question. So product managers really sit at the cross section between the business, engineering, and sort of design side of what we build into our products. And so we work with our business stakeholders and kind of help to understand what are the objectives of the business overall. How can we help kind of best align the engineering and design sides of the organization with that, and really start with a vision for kind of what we want to build. So my area of passes, kind of thinking about what is the current experience, what are our business goals, what are our user challenges, what are our developer challenges, and how do we really define a strategy to help address those things and to drive to a future that helps to build those business goals while taking into account the technical constraints that we have, our technical considerations, working with designers to ensure that we're still providing our users and developers with a great user experience. And then there's, of course, the other cross-functional teams that we work with here at Google, developer relations being one of the primary ones, but also support, legal, security, privacy, as well as many others that kind of help to bring all of this together to deliver the Google Wallet experience that we see today.
Awesome. And you mentioned that you work with Google Wallet passes. Are there other stuff that are not passes in Google Wallets?
There are. So the primary sort of use case for a wallet, right, is for you to use it for payment use cases. So we kind of think of this as your tap to pay kind of use case when you load in your credit card to Google Wallet and tokenize the card, so to speak, and use it at a merchant terminal. We work closely also with our online API team. So the Buy with GPay button that maybe some of you have on your websites or apps that makes it really easy to go ahead and check out quickly using GPay. So that's kind of our payment side of the house. Then we have within the kind of beyond payment space, right? We have passes that exist across loyalty, gift card offers, event tickets, boarding passes, our generic pass vertical, our generic private pass vertical. But then we think about transit, we think about identity. There's an access team here at Google working on the campus IDs, corporate badge access, hotel key access, etc. And then our digital card keys as well that are a little bit more aligned with the Android ecosystem. So I'm just a slice, let's say, of the overall picture here that is Google Wallet and Google Payments.
Awesome. Yeah, it's just amazing that Google Wallet can do so much for us as users. And you mentioned that you work between business, we work between the technical sides. Do you have a lot of fights with like the developers about estimates or how long a feature is going to take to develop?
Oh no, everything is always very straightforward and clear, and we're always totally aligned on our estimates. No, so any good sort of product development team is going to have their let's say discussions, debates, deliberations, about what are the priorities for the team that they're working on. What are the priorities for the org? What are the priorities for you as a feature team? How do we best serve our customers, both from an end user perspective and also from a developer perspective? And I have a former life as a software engineer. Did a bunch of startups here in New York City before I switched over to product. So that's been helpful in kind of bringing the, let's say, technical feasibility kind of angle or perspective to my job. But I have a great team of engineers that kind of help to bring not only the engineering side, but also the product side, and thinking about, hey, is this really the right thing to do for the user, or could we approach this in a different way? How might we start off with more of an MVP solution versus going full-fledged, let's say, feature launch? And we're fortunate enough to kind of have the flexibility and freedom to go ahead and collaborate heavily together. And it's I've been on the team now just over 2 years, at Google for just over 6 years. And it's been great just kind of working with the team and kind of getting more embedded in the development processes, and learning to work better and collaborate better.
Yeah, I can confirm that here with Google Wallet, we have indeed a great team. And I'd like to just to remind our audience that if you have any questions to Kevin, please post them in the chat, because, well, we're here for this. We want to see your questions here in the comments, and we want to be able to answer as many as we can today, because this is a unique opportunity to have like a Google Wallet product manager talking with you live. And Kevin, so I think a lot of people would be interested to know, like, what is your typical day? I know that you have a lot of meetings, because when I try to book something with you, your calendar is always full. But besides the meetings, what else do you do?
Yeah, no, it's just meetings. No. So I would say my typical day starts off with, and maybe it's not even fair to say typical day, like looking at a typical week and sort of looking ahead at the various different milestones that we might be trying to hit over the coming week, the coming month, the coming quarter, and making sure that like my time is allocated correctly to the right priorities is sort of super critical for me. It's very cheap to put a meeting on a calendar, so you have to kind of be a little defensive with your time in order to be able to put in some time to kind of think through more long-term kind of strategic things. But I have my sort of regular meetings that I have with the cross-functional team and with the engineering team. There is no shortage of emails or chat messages to respond to on a pretty much daily basis. Google Wallet is a global product, so we have teams that kind of span across each of the kind of major regions in Asia Pacific, Europe, as well as the Americas. And so, constantly trying to make sure that people are in sync with kind of what the latest status is on various different projects we're working on, making sure that, projects are followed up on, or helping to kind of put out fires, so to speak, although I fortunately haven't dealt with too many of those. But that's kind of one part of the job, right? Keeping the inbox and sort of chat messages sort of addressed that need to be. The other is kind of looking at what our launch schedule is, and making sure that we're doing the right things around QA testing, publishing documentation, responding to feature bugs, doing triage, and kind of getting a pulse on kind of where things are from a launch perspective. Google's like a pretty doc heavy culture where we try to write things down and drive debate and discussion on various different things that we're working on through documents. So whether I'm writing my own document about an opportunity that has come up, or a PRD that needs to be written for a feature that we're going to launch, or I'm reviewing docs that are by other teams, we're working pretty heavily across the different product teams within Google, both within payments and outside, to kind of make sure that we're delivering, a world-class kind of Google Wallet experience, and kind of seeing how we can make best use of the Google ecosystem with that Google Wallet experience. And so there's a lot of coordination and alignment that kind of goes along with that. So I'd say I still have probably a few documents this week still in the queue to review, but that's what Fridays are for. And so that's a big piece of it. And then, looking at the research, looking at bugs, interviewing users and having face-to-face conversations with various partners or developers to kind of understand their pain points, their needs, and the different opportunities there. Super, super critical. I'm fortunate enough to have my user experience team here in New York with me, so I get to work hand in hand. Shout out to Salvador, who works with me closely on pretty much everything we do with respect to Google Wallet. But yeah, it's it's very important to us that we are trying to listen and give channels for developers to provide feedback, for users to provide feedback. There are a lot of you out there, so sorry for those who we haven't responded directly back to, but we are listening, and we are trying to go ahead and address these needs and make sure they're prioritized based on sort of the severity and impact and sort of what we can do given the constraints that we have. So that's my typical week. I kind of start the day relatively early. I take the bus in the city a couple of days a week. And sometimes I'm on with our teams in Singapore, Japan, India, China, kind of having conversations. So it sometimes can go pretty late, but make it work. I fortunately have a family that's pretty understanding of the needs and demands of the job. So I appreciate that as well.
Awesome. And just to because I'm sure somebody might be wondering, you mentioned PRD, that you have to write PRDs. Like we know internally what is a PRD, but for people that are watching us, what is a PRD?
Yes, a PRD, probably the bread and butter of what product managers do, a product requirements document. It really lays out, it exists in different places and kind of manifests in different ways. I was actually surprised to see when I joined Google, 6 years ago, that there was no official PRD template. Product management sort of wasn't born at Google, but it certainly was developed pretty heavily here, and we have some really great programs that kind of develop product managers, and we sort of refine the craft in a big way. But I'm surprised that kind of there was no main master template for how this would all work. And so it's really up to the PM and kind of dependent on the feature or on the opportunity, how big it is, how many users you're serving, or what type of service you're kind of building towards. But you really think of it as it's building the kind of business case for why you're building something, identifying the, let's say, goals of what you're building, perhaps the vision, who the users are, what their pain points are, what the impact or potential market size is of the opportunity. And then most importantly, it's describing the user journeys and the flows that we kind of expect or want to build and want to become realized within, whether it's our developer platform, using the the Google Pay and Wallet console, or whether it's on the app or on another surface, and kind of describing the specific user journeys, user stories that we would use to kind of build, inform the design process and the development process, and then being very specific about what the actual requirements are from a both functional and non-functional perspective. There are other things that go into it, like what are our legal concerns or risks, what are our security questions, what are our privacy considerations to go in there, what's the potential go-to-market plan, like how are we going to actually bring this to developers, bring this to users, are we going to test in just one country, are we going to roll this out globally to everyone, is there a sort of experiment approach that we're going to take here where only a certain subset of users are going to get exposed to this, what are the milestones for our delivery here, we're typically not trying to just build something and release it in one fell shot. And there's more that could kind of go into this, but that's I'd say kind of the baseline of what you're looking to get to with a PRD.
Awesome, and I can see a lot of comments and questions here in the chat. So don't worry, we're going to go through most of them, and I'm trying to pick some of the questions that are like have the right timing. Like we're talking about this specifically. And Carlos Rivas here has a good question about your daily activities. And he's asking, what is the most demanding activity for you as a product manager?
Ooh, the most demanding activity, taking care of my 2 kids. No. So I would say the most demanding, like it's somewhat of a meta point here, but the context switching that has to happen between meetings, working in with, let's say, the engineering team and kind of talking about lower level technical details or trade-offs that we have to make there, and then bouncing between that and a partner or a developer conversation partners, we call them internally as well, and then over to like a marketing conversation or a more like VP strategic type of conversation, and that kind of jumping between things throughout the day. Sometimes it's back to back to back, can be the most demanding. I think we treat launches pretty seriously, and so kind of getting to the launch phase and getting to be launch ready is super critical for us and demands a lot both from myself and sort of the broader team. So I'd say that is maybe one of the more demanding things. I actually really enjoy the user research aspect. So like talking with you developers, talking with partners, talking with end users. That to me is invigorating and exciting. And then translating that into kind of what are the possible opportunities. So I don't know. Some people may say that's one of their demanding pieces, but I find that to be energizing.
Awesome. So yeah, so we talked about the most demanding activity, and Carlos Rivas too has another question about the other side.
Mm-hmm.
What is the most rewarding thing you do being a product manager at Google?
Yeah, I'd say it's kind of twofold. There's one that's like giving back to the PM community. So like working within Google and helping other PMs, whether it's through mentorship or working through, we have some different organizations. There's the Jigsaw organization or google.org to kind of like work with various companies and different programs that kind of can bring some of my skill set to, these, let's say, goodwill type of opportunities that are out there. But on the product side, I think seeing something that is a user pain point or seeing something that is a developer pain point go through the product lifecycle of us having to do our discovery, do our research, build something, design something, kind of go through that process of my former manager would call this storming and forming on different things, and then getting it out into the hands of users, is probably the most rewarding aspect, where you really see that there was this sort of pain point, or there was this long-standing request. Like push notifications was one that we had been asked many a time. I sort of inherited that request when I came onto the team, and to see it finally go live is rewarding and kind of bring some satisfaction to like the whole process there. And I think with Google Wallet having a fair amount of impact, being able to do those things and then have them impact the lives of many people out there in the world and improve it for the better is really what makes it truly rewarding.
Awesome. And you mentioned like push notifications. Like any other features that you're very excited about in Google Wallet recently?
Yeah. So we looked at this loyalty linked offers feature that we had previously had in the Google Pay app many a year ago, and we revitalized it. And it took a little bit of effort to kind of work through all the specifics here. But we recently announced at I/O the auto linked passes feature, which will be soon kind of launching with push notifications quite soon. But this idea that you as a developer are giving passes to your users, and they're saving them for their loyalty use case or for their event ticket or for their flight, but that you could be giving them more value added experiences around just that one pass or that one ticket or that one card, and really looking at a user saving a pass as they are committing to kind of having this relationship with you and putting it into their wallet. This auto link passes feature kind of allows, I think, a lot more flexibility for developers to do some really interesting things around like season ticket kind of situations, or if there's a offer or something that you think is kind of appropriate to send to your users. For event tickets, kind of bundling in something like a parking pass, and kind of making the whole wallet app experience a little bit more engaging for users. That has been kind of one of the more exciting features that I think we've worked on lately. I'm also a sucker for analytics, so I was very happy that we were able to prioritize getting pass issuer analytics into the console. There's more to come there. I'd say we launched probably like a phase 0 of that. And I'm looking forward to kind of the increments that we can make there in terms of making improvements to it, but kind of giving a little bit more insight about how users are using wallet passes from a save and kind of view perspective. That to me, if I was a external developer, would be kind of an important thing for me to see. And then, I mentioned kind of briefly, but like we're working across the Google product ecosystem to kind of help to bring the power of Wallet beyond just the app experience. We recently launched our wallet.google.com service. So now sort of anyone with a Google account can go ahead and access their Google Wallet, not just through an Android app. So this kind of really greatly expands the potential for use cases and whatnot. And when we look beyond just kind of a web version, looking at various different products within Google, there's some really, really interesting potential there. We have one integration right now with the Google Shopping team, where we are able to kind of highlight membership benefits for shopping search results in Google Search. And so, that's currently in kind of a pilot phase right now, but kind of has potential and sort of shows like what Google Wallet could do, which is to kind of help enhance a user's experience across the Google ecosystem and kind of make their lives more convenient and make things just work more seamlessly.
Awesome. And so we have a lot of questions here in the chat, and so we'll have to move to the harder questions now, because I think it was right now it was a very cool conversation. And just for you to be aware, you are watching us, we have many product managers for Google Wallet, and we have many different areas. So Kevin maybe is not the right person to answer all of these questions, but I'd like to see how good are Kevin's answers regarding this. So Kevin, Lee Woods, actually he posted the first question here in the chat. And Lee is asking, are there any plans to bring peer-to-peer payments to Google Wallet?
Oh, good question. So as Edson mentioned, there are many product managers here. I am not on the payment side. I can't say anything more beyond that in terms of whether or not we plan to expand peer-to-peer. It's certainly an interesting space, and I know through the GPay app we had that available. But I'd say stay tuned for maybe more announcements on kind of those future potential developments. I'd love to see it, but unfortunately, that's a little outside of my control.
Yeah, awesome. I like your answer as well because well, I'm a DevRel engineer. And for wallets, and in particular, I do everything that is non-payments as well. So I don't have a good answer for this, but I like your answer. And I know that we recently launched Google Wallet in India. And Google Wallet in India, we have a particular subset of features that are available to users in India. And please forgive me if I'm saying your name wrong, but Swapnil here is asking me to ask you why we have so few features in the Google Wallet app in India. And first, I think it was on purpose, but Kevin, if you could say more about it for us.
Yeah, no, good question, Swapnil. So when this goes back, I think, to what I was talking about before in terms of finding ways to incrementally sort of release things and kind of release MVPs on things, and not to say that the wallet app in India was an MVP, but we certainly launched knowing that we had just a subset of features there. India is a really important market for Google Payments, and I think we launched with what we could when we could, and our plans are to build out more features in the coming quarters here and kind of expand Google Wallet so that it's a little bit more featureful and perhaps meeting some of your needs there.
And this version of wallet with with passes only features is available in India, but do you see us expanding this for other countries, other regions in the future?
Yeah, I think I mentioned on I/O actually that we are kind of bringing Wallet more global soon. I can't comment on the specific dates specifically, but you can expect kind of Google Wallet to be really ramping up where we are in various different countries. I think we feel a little bit more comfortable with a passes first kind of experience within Wallet. Not all markets are really ready for the full kind of payments ecosystem, but we don't want to restrict sort of our developer access to be able to give and deliver really excellent experiences to their users using passes tickets, cards, etc. That don't really require that payments infrastructure.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that the Google Wallet API is available today. So with this global launch of Wallet and Wallet being available in the wallet.google.com website, developers worldwide can just go and sign up and start developing with the Google Wallet API. So you can start issuing event tickets, boarding passes, loyalty cards, gift cards, and all other cool stuff. You can start building it today. So
can I make a quick plug too? So building on the Google Wallet platform, you have our different verticals, as Edson just mentioned, or use cases, and then we have the generic pass vertical. As we talk about kind of expanding Google Wallet's reach, and like kind of existence across the Google ecosystem, it's quite important that you're integrating with the right verticals. I can't stress this enough. We've seen a couple of instances where we can't take advantage, or we can't allow a developer to take advantage of something, kind of because they were using, let's say, the generic pass vertical for their transit use case, or they were using generic pass for loyalty, or loyalty for an offer. So please do try to use the right verticals as you can, because it does have an impact on your capability to take advantage of features that we're building out. And so just a friendly plug there for those listening in that might be questioning why we are doing all this, or why we have all these different verticals. There is a method behind the madness, so to speak.
Yeah, no, that's a good tip. So we have the generic pass, which is generic, but try to use the right vertical, because you benefit from other integrations that we have and that we're planning for Google Wallets as well.
That's right.
And because we mentioned the wallet.google.com website, I have a question here from Saeed. Is the Google Wallet website coming to more countries?
Yeah, it is definitely coming to more countries. I, again, can't really comment on the exact specifics, but we will be expanding the sort of reach of the wallet.google.com site so that it can fit into, or can be accessed by users in more countries. So definitely stay tuned for our release notes, which should be coming out with various different announcements there, as well as, I'm sure, the developer newsletter, Edson, that you all kind of publish. We'll probably highlight that once those things do go live.
Yeah, I think that we have the developer newsletter, which you can sign up for in the developers.google.com/wallet website. We also have the release notes there. We have this live stream. So we have a lot of different opportunities to stay up to date with the latest and greatest features of Google Wallets.
Yeah.
And talking here about your PM journey, Kevin. So forgive me again if I'm saying it incorrectly. Like Kirtana here is asking if you could go back in time and start your PM journey all over again, how would you go about it? How would you have used the Rising AI techniques? And by the way, she's asking me because she'll be joining soon Google as a project manager apprentice. So
Okay.
if you have any advices too, she would appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, first, welcome. Exciting journey that you're embarking on here. So my journey started probably about maybe 9 years ago in product, where I found myself, as an engineer, kind of gravitating more towards the, why we were building something, rather than exactly how to build it, and being more interested again in like the user research, the kind of prototyping and testing of things. And at that point, the AI kind of space was, wasn't in a AI winter, so to speak, but it certainly was not anything near where we were today. Like, this is a pre, attention is all you need sort of timeline. So at that time, there was a strong emphasis, I think, on product managers having a more technical background, and the importance of being able to kind of speak in the same language as developers. And I think, for a large subset of product management jobs, you still should have those competencies. I do think, like, Google, for example, might have actually relaxed the requirement, though, to have product managers go through technical interviews. That was still something when I joined the company that was still there. I think reading lots of books have really helped me then, and I would continue to recommend that people do that now. Like, I feel like books are kind of a lost art, but there are plenty of kind of different books out there that kind of help you along the journey. Recently just finished. I think his name is Richard Rumelt's book, Crux, about like strategy and stuff. I'm a fan of like Marissa Perry, Escaping the Build Trap, and there's a couple of other authors out there who I think really have like good, strategies and perspectives on product management. So kind of getting involved with that. I think also just like having your own take on things and reading like biographies and stuff is helpful. Like just knowing how people's lives, particularly in technology and business, how they went and like what their stories are. I like Ben Horowitz's The Hard Thing About Hard Things was like a great read, and I feel like very relevant for like a product manager. But doing that and then finding ways to do projects. And I think I got lucky here being, having a technical background and going through a bunch of different startups, some of which only lasted for like 3-4 months. But being able to kind of have that experience be quickly to concept an idea, to develop something, to think through what the user experience has to be, to think through what the technical challenges might be, and just build it was really helpful. Depending on where you are, your community may be more or less robust, but tapping into like meetups and things. I would go to hackathons when I was first like kind of in the city and starting my software engineering career, meeting people, like actually having conversations and just building. I think that's kind of like the key piece there. And then asking for feedback and trying to network. So I think that's a pretty big piece of it, where go out there, talk with people, kind of ask for feedback on things, ask for their perspective, asking questions here in live streams. You're already on that journey. And then for AI, yeah, I would say right now I'm doing some internal and some sort of on my own self-study stuff of like the sort of nuts and bolts of how AI works, and kind of playing around in my own spare time with different models and building my own kind of side projects here just to stay up to speed as best I can.
Awesome. And so talking about features again, Jerome has a good question here. Is it possible to use your insurance card in wallets?
Oh, interesting question. So it depends on what insurance card you're talking about. We launched the generic private pass feature, basically a subset of the generic pass API, to handle specific cases where there was sensitive data included on your pass. And this might be something like your health insurance card or the United Kingdom. They went ahead and integrated with us for their like tax identification number. And so if you have a use case that sort of warrants that type of usage of the generic private pass vertical, that would be where you would go. And then separately from that, other types of insurance like auto insurance, I believe, don't quote me, not in all jurisdictions, I think this is necessarily definitively the case, but that might fit more in our generic pass API sort of use case. I'd recommend you just go ahead and file a request with the support team. They'll be able to go ahead and help you to kind of navigate those questions. And if you were talking more as a user, not sure which side the question landed on. We have a pass from a photo feature that allows you to kind of add passes to Google Wallet just by taking a photo. We'll be expanding on that in the coming quarters with some, let's say, more sophisticated ways of doing that. And stay tuned for that piece of it there. And yeah, hopefully that answered your question.
Awesome. And Kevin mentioned the support team. So if you go to the Google Pay and Wallet console, we have a support item in the left side of the screen. So, and by the way, that team is awesome. So you can post your questions there, your doubts, and they will reply like in a timely manner for you. We receive a lot of compliments from our interviews about our support. So that's an opportunity for you to try it out as well.
Yes.
And let me see. Oh, and here Vilko has a question about the push notifications. So will the push notifications have a preview in the drawer? they need to be improved. So it's a question as a comment, and a comment as well.
Well, first, thanks for the feedback there. Yeah, we've done some sort of user and partner research kind of on the initial pilot of push notifications. There are certainly improvements that we're aiming to make. I can't comment too much more beyond that, but stay tuned for some additional enhancements that we will be bringing to push notifications. We recognize there's some room for improvement there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure that a lot of times we as users, we just look at an app and say, why don't they do this or that? And most of the times, like the product manager and the engineering team, they thought about it already. So it didn't happen for a reason. So most of the times we have good reasons for that. So yeah, just stay tuned because we're always improving Google Wallet.
Most of the time there's reasons, I'd say, whether or not they're good reasons. But yes, a lot of time and effort goes into launching the right thing or what we can launch with. So yeah, we're constantly looking for feedback though. So thank you again for the suggestion there.
Awesome.
Where are the softball questions again?
Okay, and Said here is asking, will Google Wallet support dynamic QR codes in the future?
Yeah, so we have current support for certain QR rotating barcodes that support for specific use cases today. We're always looking to kind of go ahead and kind of improve the scanning experience and conveyance experience for our developers. I'd really recommend filing a feature request or at least providing feedback through the different channels, both to the support team or on the developer website. And letting us know kind of your specific use case and kind of what you would use it for, so we make sure that we're building kind of towards the right things.
Nice. And I also know that because we're going to present this at I/O Connect Berlin next week, we also have Google Wallet added support for the Multic barcode, which is specific for Germany, I think. So if that's the kind of dynamic QR code that you're thinking about, we already have support for that. So I don't know if it's available or if it will be available anywhere else, but at least for this one, I know we support it. And let's see, Contactless Connoisseur is asking, will more passes become available for use when the phone's battery is dead? Currently, only car keys can still be used when the OS isn't running.
Yeah. So this is I will admit, a topic that is a little outside my wheelhouse, like the secure element versus HCE sort of discussion. I know we are making sort of changes in that area. The specific details of which I don't have the exact information on. I can totally appreciate that there are use cases where you may still need to use a pass saved in Google Wallet or a ticket saved in Google Wallet, even if your phone is dead. And yeah, I hope that our latest changes will kind of help to address some of those, let's say, gaps that you might be seeing today as a developer.
Okay. And well, I know that a lot of you that are watching us right now are posting questions here. I know that we have some questions related to transit, to payments like Google Pay or credit cards. I'd just like to point out that Kevin is not the right person to be answering these questions because Kevin works with the passes, like everything non-payments, non-transit, like non-access. Well, it's better to say that Kevin is working with event tickets, boarding passes, loyalty cards, the generic passes, and related features. So, and I'm on purpose, I'm not picking the ones related to Google Pay versus related to payments, because I just like to point out that we're planning, and actually it's going to probably happen next month. We're going to do an episode about what's the difference between Google Pay and Google Wallet. And we'll have people from both teams, Google Pay and Google Wallet, live here to answer your questions. So I'd just like to ask you to save these questions for this episode. What's the difference between Google Pay and Google Wallet? Because then we'll have the right folks to answer them.
Sounds like you also need, Edson, a set of other product managers who are brave enough to come on here and answer questions about transit and payments, maybe in the future.
No, thank you for being the first one. I'll try to convince the other PMs, your colleagues, so they can answer these good questions that we have here.
Yeah. Lots of questions.
I can see questions about Wear OS, about transit, about credit cards, and I know they're very good questions, but unfortunately, we're not able to answer that today. So let's see. This one, I don't know if it's your particular area, but Kayo is asking, is Google Wallet available for Africa? And if so, is it used? I hope it is. Well,
yeah. I don't have the official country list in front of me. I mentioned we had technical difficulties. My laptop is not working. But I believe we are live in at least a handful, if not a subset of countries in Africa. I can't comment on the specific usage, but I would say just like generally for digital wallets, right? We've seen an enormous kind of growth over the past couple of years, and I think the trends that we see sort of across the industry just kind of indicate that that's going to be growing in the future. So even if there is less usage in there, you could be the first as a developer to introduce a use case that might be useful, depending on where you are and kind of what the vertical or what the use case is. It's really impressed me, all the different ways in which we see passes and various different objects being used within Wallet. It's only us that are trying to keep up with all of the really interesting and innovative ways that you all as developers are integrating with the platform and the product.
Yeah, I think right now Google Wallet is available in more than 80 countries and territories worldwide.
Yeah.
But in Africa in particular, I just took a quick look about in the list, and Morocco, we have Google Wallets in Morocco. So at least the north part of Africa.
In South Africa, is that right? I wasn't going to say it, but if you have the list, then you can.
South Africa too. So we have the north and the south.
Yeah,
they're covered. So, and we're always expanding the number of countries that have Google Wallets available. So maybe soon we'll have it in your country as well. What else? Oh, we're talking about it. I got kind of lost the list here, but let's pick another question from Carlos Rivas. How much of your daily work is based on data? What kind of data you use to review, and what tools do you use?
Ooh, good questions there. We look at data quite frequently. I pretty much always have my metrics dashboards up. We have internal tools that internal Google teams use to kind of like display analytics and whatnot. As you'd imagine, the scale of Google data sort of demands that we kind of have our own products that we use. But I'm looking at really the kind of basic set, at least at the top level, of metrics that any product team should be looking at, right? The acquisition or activation, the retention metrics that kind of exist in there, or engagement. Looking at how our different verticals are used across wallets, so looking at number of passes saved, and also our monthly active users and whatnot. And then we have a number of different dashboards that kind of drill into the various different user journeys and features that we've built. We're fortunate enough to have an analytics team that kind of helps us to make a little bit more sense of the data, because there is so much of it. And I would say, it's something that we have. It helps to inform a bunch of our decision making. It doesn't do the decision making for us, though, meaning that we are interpreting that data, we are factoring it into what we look at and what we prioritize as a team. But it certainly isn't like the only thing that we use. I'm a big fan of like using it for identifying patterns and sort of informing what hypotheses we might have, and then going and validating those both through experimentation, but also through other forms of user research as well. But I'd say it's definitely a daily dashboard for me to be looking at metrics. You also got to be a little sensitive to like don't react too much to any dips or maybe changes in metrics, because those things happen. There's a lot of seasonal usage that we see through Google Wallet and through just like the passive space in general. Yeah, data is definitely plays a big part in my day to day.
Awesome. Let's see here. Jerome has another question for you. What's the feature you're most proud of, and do you use an Android phone?
Well, my Android phone's right in front of me. Yes, so I was an Android user even before I joined the Google Wallet team. So I am a native Google Wallet user. I will admit, though, I don't think I had. Maybe I tokenized a card. No, I guess I probably used it for like event tickets and stuff beforehand. I've been on both sides of the ecosystem. I've like swapped back and forth between iPhone and Android, but now I've been an Android user for maybe like the past 4 or 5 years. Pixel user all the way through and through. I like kind of having the most native kind of software experience and best camera kind of experience that I can. For those who have switched back and forth, you may have had the pain of like your iMessages and maybe some people contacting you thinking that it was your phone, but it's not. It's somewhere in iMessage land somewhere. Anyway, so yes, Android user, Google Wallet primary user here, as you would expect. But the feature I'm most proud of. So launching that generic private pass vertical took a fair amount of effort on our side. It's a sensitive space, playing with kind of more sensitive data, and ensuring that we're handling your personal data appropriately is probably one of the most important things that we think about when we're talking about new features. Respecting all like privacy laws, regulations, really a privacy first sort of way of kind of coming at features to make sure that we're building the correct thing. So from a complexity standpoint, I think that was probably one of the most proud I was just of like the solution we came up with and whatnot. We recently, we're in the process of launching the auto added link passes feature or auto link passes feature. So I think that is another one that I would say, that to me has a lot of potential in terms of the creativity and flexibility we could see being used there. And so that for its novelty, let's say, and kind of potential, I think is interesting. And push notifications I have to plug, because while seemingly straightforward, there is a reason why over the 4 years that this was or had been requested, it wasn't built. So it took a bit of finessing to kind of get that out there, albeit with some improvements to be made. But at least we're kind of starting there on that journey to kind of help developers engage their users via Google Wallet a little bit more.
Awesome. And here, Contactless Connoisseur has another question for you. Like, are you working with retailers to support more NFC loyalty cards? There are a few omissions that Apple Wallet supports: Carrefour in France and Panera in America. I don't know if that's your particular area.
Yeah, so I do play a role in our Smart Tap or NFC conveyance for Google Wallet. It is something that we are actively engaging with both retailers and with terminal providers on to kind of make sure that we are trying to help the ecosystem grow there. Contactless obviously through the pandemic really spiked in terms of its usefulness and sort of interest from the broader market in terms of adopting it. And so Google Smart Tap, for those who don't know, that's our Google Wallet's way of doing NFC conveyance for beyond payment sort of communication. So this would be a terminal that is looking to receive, let's say, a loyalty identifier, can do so through a pass that has been configured to convey Smart Tap. It does require that the terminal itself is configured or certified with Smart Tap. And I'm assuming Contactless Connoisseur is sort of poking at how much more Smart Tap integration can they go ahead and utilize as a developer, or maybe as a user. So I'd say stay tuned on that front. And for those who haven't actually looked into this, please feel free to check out our documentation. You can also request access to like a much deeper, wider breadth of the Smart Tap documentation by reaching out to support and kind of describing your use case. there's like a code lab in there. There's very very low level technical details on how to get your terminals supported here. And I think contactless is the future. And if you're not thinking about that yet, you certainly should at least take a look to go ahead and see how you might be able to leverage it for your specific use case.
Awesome. And we're back here with a question about India. I don't know if you have more information about it, but Vilko is asking, how has the adoption and response been for Google Wallet in India? Are big companies adopting it?
Yeah, so as you could imagine, can't comment too much on specific details here, but I would say our partnerships team and our India team have done a really great job of kind of bringing Google Wallet to the broader India market. I know we have an IO Connect coming up in India. Is that right, Edson? You probably have the exact details and dates on that better than I do.
I do. I can say that the developer response for the Google Wallet India announcement has been great, because previously, some of you might be aware, in the beginning of the year, we launched the Global Gamers Challenge, where people all over the world joined the forces to create like innovative solutions that emphasize like sustainable, or like promoted like better ways for us to do things for the environment. So, and we had a lot of teams and developers that joined the challenge from India. And a lot of them were asking, oh, why is the Google Wallet API not available in India yet? And luckily for us, like we just recently announced it, people in India, if you're from India, you can use the Google Wallet API right now. You can start issuing your boarding passes, event tickets, loyalty cards, gift cards, and everything else from Wallet. And if you're interested, if you want more information about it, I know that unfortunately the event is already sold out, but we're going to have an edition of IO Connect in India. And Google Wallet is going to be big there. We have a lot of stuff planned for the event. So if you're one of the lucky ones that were able to get a ticket to IO Connect India, I hope to see you there. It's going to happen on July the 17th. It's a Wednesday next month. And yes, Google Wallet is going to be big in India, in the event and in the market overall. Let's see. Oh, Saeed has another question. Can we see Google Wallet using NFC for sharing down the line?
Ooh, good question there. We've looked at NFC for sharing a little bit, kind of from like more of like a hackathon. I know some internal hackathons have kind of looked at this. Technically today, you could take an Android device and have it, if it's Smart Tap, enable it for Smart Tap and actually have it act as if it is like a terminal that can be done for contactless. So that's on like the Smart Tap side and using the existing kind of solutions that we have today for that. But then the concept of doing things like NFC to NFC sharing of like business cards and things like that certainly have been discussed. It's sort of always a ruthless prioritization exercise about where we can put our time as a team. So it hasn't made the short-term roadmap just yet, but definitely I think in the mid to long-term future, you will see more NFC sharing like that happening. Android also has its own kind of nearby sharing mode that you can use. We do have a sharing feature that we rolled out for passes. If you have the multiple users, multiple devices configuration setting set for your pass, it fits for a specific subset of use cases, right? That generates a link that basically can be shared with any other user, but then it can be potentially forwarded on, or any other user, like another user could share that with someone else. So it may not be fitting for your use case, depending on what that might be. But I believe that could be done through the nearby share as well. So pseudo support for NFC to NFC sharing through the Android kind of primitives there.
Okay. And we're almost in the top of the hour, so I'll pick one last question for you.
Yeah.
Let's see. And I kind of know the answer already, but let me ask it to you. Ahmad Reza is asking you, when will Google Wallet will be available in Indonesia?
Yes, another one of those good questions, but one I can't really share too much information on. Just to say, Indonesia is a really interesting place, and I think Google will end up there eventually. The timeline, I actually don't have precise understanding myself of that just yet. But stay tuned, Edson. I'm sure we'll announce as soon as we possibly can. And we'll push through the other channels as well. Hopefully with some heads up too. Even for, I didn't mention this before, but for like the global country expansion and whatnot, we're trying to give you as developers at least some advance notice that these expansions are happening. We want to give you some time to go ahead and start your integrations and be able to test things before we actually go fully live in the market with the app to our larger end user base. So do stay tuned, subscribe to the RSS, subscribe to the newsletter, and we'll try to announce those as soon as we can so you can get to building.
Awesome. And if you join us right now in the live stream, just be aware, I can see a lot of questions here. Kevin is the PM for Google Wallet for passes. So I can see a lot of questions about payments, credit cards, debit cards, transit cards, hotel keys, access, Wear OS. I'll make sure to invite the right PM to be able to answer these questions, but unfortunately, Kevin is not the right person to be answering these questions. And once again, next month, we will have an edition of this live stream talking about what's the difference between Google Pay and Google Wallet. I know you have a lot of questions about wallets, pay, credit cards, debit cards. And so save these questions and please stay tuned for the next live stream, for an upcoming live stream, actually, because in the next one, we're going to be talking about a different subject. So please subscribe to our channel, stay tuned in our social media, follow us on X, former Twitter, so you can be like informed when we have the new content coming. And yeah, I think that's a wrap. So Kevin, I'd like to thank you so much for being our first guest, our very special guest of this Google Wallet live streams. I loved your answers to the questions. I'm pretty sure that the audience loved your presence here as well. And any final words to our friends, online friends?
Yeah. I mean, thank you, Edson, for hosting me here. It was a pleasure. The questions I think ranged there, and they were all very good ones. But I want to thank you to the developers that are out there who are kind of working on our platform. I think we know that we've made many improvements to kind of how you work with our APIs, but there's more to do there. And I'm super inspired by all the work that you all do in terms of kind of bringing Google Wallet to your users and making really amazing experiences. So keep up the good work. There's more to come, and we appreciate all the efforts there. So
yeah. Thank you, Kevin, once more. Thank you for watching us, and please stay tuned. Hope to see you soon in the next Google Wallet live stream. Bye.
Bye.